Ubisoft's had quite the troubled year. Their stock recently plummeted after reports of 3 canceled unannounced titles alongside Skull and Bones getting delayed for a 6th time, on top of the fact that certain games just didn't meet sales expectations. That brings the total number of canceled games in the last 6 months to frickin' 7, and that's on top of the numerous projects that are in development hell, namely Skull and Bones, which has been a decade-long nightmare. This article is 2 years old as of the publishing of this video, so this 8-year nightmare is now turned into 10. You've got other games like Prince of Persia, which looked pretty rough, at least last time we saw it. We don't know what's going on in terms of its development schedule. It keeps getting delayed. Recently, pre-orders got canceled across the board, which is pretty ominous. And then you've got Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is still in early development despite having broken Duke Nukem Forever's record for longest game in development. So clearly that game's not coming out anytime soon. That's on top of the toxic workplace rife with harassment, misconduct, abuse, and discrimination that executives and higher-ups have not properly addressed fully yet. And then on top of that, you've got plenty of articles just reporting delays, cancellations, and cost-cutting measures over the past year. Matters only got worse for Ubisoft when CEO Yves Guillemot addressed employees by putting the onus and the responsibility of the company's recent failures and the need for future success on employees who have been busting their asses under the misguided and piss-poor leadership of Yves Guillemot. But the way Yves Guillemot framed it was that employees need to do better. Here's exactly what he said: "Today more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure we get back on the path to success. I'm also asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we're being as efficient and lean as possible." A rather hypocritical statement to make. The audacity for this man to say that employees need to give their full energy and commitment, which they have been doing, but towards projects that are not inspired, that are chasing trends, and whose management has been poorly executed, has pissed off employees, and they've taken to protest, especially after Guillemot wrote the following quote to employees: "The ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality and show everyone what we're capable of achieving." Ubisoft Paris's union in particular was none too happy, which is why they tweeted the following on January 17th. "Ubisoft Paris called to strike Friday, January 27th afternoon. Mr. Guillemot wants to put pressure on his employees. Let us respond to him with a strike." Among the attached images is this English version of Solidaires Informatique's statement on this whole situation. Solidaires Informatique being the union that's representing employees at Ubisoft Paris. They've had scathing things to say, like, according to Guillemot, the ball's in your court, but the money stays in his pocket. They talk about a worrying future based on what Mr. Guillemot recently announced, and statements like, you have to be especially careful and strategic with your spending. They point out the hypocrisy and irony of that and how it's not funny when Mr. Guillemot speaks of attrition and organizational adjustments. The union accuses Guillemot of actually meaning staff reductions, discrete studio closures, salary cuts, disguised layoffs, etc. They reprimand the way Mr. Guillemot is trying to shift the blame once again to employees, and how the usage of terms like "you gotta give it your all and be as efficient and lean as possible" will likely translate into poor employment practices like overtime, managerial pressure, burnout, etc. And they ultimately demanded an increase in salaries, implementation of the 4-day week, which is becoming more commonplace, especially in Europe, transparency on the evolution of the workforce, commitment against disguised dismissals, and a condemnation of abusive managerial policies. And it is iterated here once again that there will be a strike, or at the very least, employees are being called to strike on Friday, January 27th from 2 to 6 p.m. Now, with how displeased Ubisoft employees have been at the way Guillemot has been communicating, Ubisoft Paris in particular, Guillemot was set to meet staff at Ubisoft's Paris studio in a face-to-face Q&A meeting on Thursday, but apparently that got canceled last minute, and it is alleged that that has to do with the fact that on the same day that that meeting was supposed to take place, more than 1 million people flooded the city streets in a strikers' march protesting President Emmanuel Macron's plan to raise France's retirement age by 2 years to 64. A source said the march was the reason why the Q&A was canceled. If there's one country that knows how to protest, it's freaking France. But recently, it's not just France that Yves Guillemot got to address. There was a company-wide Q&A meeting that this Kotaku article reports on, with a headline that reads, "Ubisoft devs grill boss on shifting blame and chasing trends." Employees have had no reservations about letting Yves Guillemot know just what an awful communicator he is, what an awful leader and motivator he is, and just the general direction of the company when it comes to the games that have been greenlit, and how they are all indeed rather stale because they're not trying to experiment with new things that set new trends, but rather just chasing after trends in the hopes of getting a slice of an upcoming new, big, juicy, lucrative pie all of that's just had a negative impact on morale across the company. So it reads right here that Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot faced tough questions from some exhausted and fed-up staff about recent missteps and future plans in a company-wide Q&A session on Wednesday. So this Q&A session took place on January 18th, 2023. And something that Kotaku got to glimpse through sources that have been in contact with is corporate communication channels that they saw. And among the comments that was upvoted en masse by employees read, "The ball is now in our court," quoting Yves Guillemot. "For years it has been in your court, Yves Guillemot, so why did you mishandle the ball so badly so we, the workers, have to fix it for you? You are the captain of this ship. We're following your lead, and for you to lead the ship astray so badly that now you have to take the ball and put it in the workers' court? Like, that's just pathetic leadership and a pitiful lack of accountability on the part of the captain who steered the ship into the iceberg." Not to say that workers don't have to do their part, but they have been doing their part. And Ubisoft's recent woes has less to do with the talent within Ubisoft and more to do with how projects are managed, what projects are greenlit, and just the lack of innovation within the company. And when it comes to the cancellation of projects or the lack of vision for projects that are currently in development hell, that's not the fault of the workers. The ball is not on their court when it comes to those issues. That's on leadership, that's on management, that's on the creative heads. Now, Yves Guillemot did try to do some damage control during the meeting by apologizing, stating that "I heard your feedback and I'm sorry this was perceived that way." He's basically trying to act like that wasn't what he was trying to say, but it was perceived that way because that was exactly what you were saying, and that was exactly what you meant when you said the ball is in your court. It was you trying to shift blame. But Guillemot insists that when saying the ball is in your court to deliver our lineup on time and at the expected level of quality, I wanted to convey the idea that more than ever, I need your talent and energy to make it happen. The employees have been giving you all their energy and talent to the point of crunching and essentially being in a miserable work environment for many because of the conditions that you put them in. Even though they give you everything they have for the sake of the projects that they're working on and for the sake of the company and for the sake of just trying to do their jobs well, you still want more? He proceeds by saying, "This is a collective journey that starts, of course, with myself and with the leadership team to create the conditions for all of us to succeed together." That's probably the one sensible thing that Yves Guillemot has said, but even then, saying that this is a collective journey, as if to imply that we all share the blame when, again, Yves Guillemot is the one leading the pack and leading them astray. The insinuations there are still not particularly favorable. There's nothing here that says we as leadership failed, we failed you, and we need to do better. We need to do right by you so you can do your best work. Something like that would ring with much more substance, but instead what he does here is he continues to kind of shift the responsibility and onus to employees. He does now try to make it about the collective journey, but the ground floor workers had little to do with Ubisoft's recent failures. That was not a collective failure, that was a leadership failure. And as for how employees receive this adjustment to his initial statement, the clarification apparently resonated with some developers, but others who spoke with Kotaku still feel management is out of touch and found little in the meeting to reassure them. The hour-long affair was filled with industry buzzwords and business jargon and light on specifics. Typical corporate maneuvering when they have absolutely no clue what to say, when they have nothing of substance to say. Kind of like when you ask Ubisoft about NFTs, they'll go, "Oh, this will revolutionize gaming. This will allow gaming to take that next leap forward." And the second you ask them, "How? Give us specifics," they shrivel up and say, "Oh, you just don't get it. People just aren't used to emerging new technology, but they'll see. One day they'll see." And when they do provide specifics, it's stuff that you can do without NFTs. It's stuff that's already possible through technology that's less nefarious. It's all just buzzwords in an attempt to gaslight us, and I feel like this is the employees' version of that, where this hour-long affair was filled with buzzwords that ultimately mean nothing and ultimately don't shine a light on future plans that will improve the way the company does things. Chief Financial Officer Frederick Duguet said they needed to reduce costs and increase productivity. Oh boy, I fear what this corpo means when he says increase productivity. Chief People Officer Anika Grant rejected a recent proposal for 4-day work weeks and said requested raises to keep up with inflation were off the table amid the current financial struggles. They want increased productivity and for employees to work harder, but without the additional compensation to match. So that's just punishing the employees for leadership's failures. typical corporate bullshit. And finally, none of the executives directly addressed the recent call for a strike over working conditions at the company's Paris studio, just avoiding all of the important questions and dodging accountability like frickin' Logan Paul. Guillemot wouldn't even clarify details about potential layoffs, just vaguely saying it's not about doing more with less, but finding ways to do things differently across the company. I don't even know what that means. That's just such a vague non-statement of a statement. Kotaku then highlights a question that one of the employees posed during a meeting in the company communications channel that got hundreds of upvotes. It reads, "It appears that management is out of touch with games, saying that we need to adapt to an evolving industry. Why are we chasing trends instead of setting them?" Another way to phrase the question would be, why do we need to adapt to an evolving industry instead of being the evolution of the industry itself? It's not just customers who feel like Ubisoft games have grown stale and that they've failed to innovate. Employees at the company also want the ability to be able to just really go balls to the walls with new, cool, interesting ideas. It's just the kind of tail chasing that Ubisoft has been doing has been severely detrimental to the creativity of their projects and just the ability for the projects to succeed. Ubisoft has been trying so hard to break into Battle Royale, but they've been extremely unsuccessful on that front. They've tried to delve into hero-based shooters and whatnot, but all we have seen lately is numerous cancellations or projects getting shut down. That's on top of Ubisoft immediately jumping on the NFTs bandwagon when that got some traction back in 2021 before it just crashed and died completely. And going back to trend-chasing games, there's Ghost Recon Frontline, basically a ripoff of Call of Duty Warzone that Ubisoft eventually decided to can after how poorly received the announcement was, and also they canceled 3 other projects, leaving Ghost Recon fans scratching their heads and developers disillusioned. Even with valued existing IPs, they are trying to chase trends with them rather than bring out the unique aspects of the IPs that they have and really evolving them in creative ways. Ghost Recon fans don't want a Call of Duty Warzone, they want frickin' Ghost Recon, and they refuse to make just a purely Ghost Recon game. Same thing with Tom Clancy's X-Defined, the hip shooter game that just shoved the Tom Clancy name in there, a name that doesn't fit whatever it was they were going for. And for the more well-established Ubisoft IPs like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy, which Guillemot said that the company's going to double down on, they've not innovated enough with these IPs because they keep just factory churning out new entries that just feel like reskin versions of the same Ubisoft open world formula. I just don't look forward to Ubisoft games anymore. And not to say that there aren't good versions of the Ubisoft open world formula, but with Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, these series just haven't evolved enough. Or in the case of Assassin's Creed, I feel like it's kind of evolved a little in the wrong direction with just how much menial side activity they've shoved into these games. Instead of focusing on density and substance, they focus on just volume to incentivize people into partaking in the live service elements. And with live services, you want to keep people engaged in the long term instead of just designing a package that's just the right length with just the right amount of content, with content that feels substantial instead of just menial tasks that are just sprayed about just for the sake of trying to keep people playing the game for as long as possible. Just the creativity and intentions behind the games that Ubisoft have been releasing have felt completely off and completely corporate driven. And I don't get the sense that executives are really ready to listen or learn their lesson. You've got Marie-Sophie de Walbert, Senior Vice President of Studio Operations, saying things like, we need to acknowledge that the trends are for mega brands, when asked about why the company didn't pursue more varied, smaller games like Anno 1800. And when employees brought up what I was just talking about, Ubisoft's general lack of inventiveness, recycling just the same Ubisoft open world formula without much in the way of advancement, evolution, or innovation, Guillemot pointed to Far Cry 6 as a good quality game that was still considered not innovative enough. That game was just fine, like it functioned, and there's some fun to be had in it, but it felt like I'd already played this game before. It was just with a different skin. Like literally, I could see the level design taken straight from some of the Assassin's Creed fortresses or some of the Watch Dogs fortresses that you have to infiltrate. At the very least, I am looking forward to Assassin's Creed Mirage because it is going back to Assassin's Creed roots. It's going to be a smaller, denser game that's going to be focused on assassinations a la Assassin's Creed 1, just more modernized. So stuff like that I'm looking forward to, but even then, it's them going back to an older formula. There's really not much in the way of something new and exciting and thrilling that, sparks fireworks inside me going on at Ubisoft. And it seems as though employees feel exactly the same way, and they've grilled the executives, namely CEO Yves Guillemot, over it, which I'm happy to see, and hopefully it'll make the executives reconsider, but executives are stubborn mofos who just follow the money. And nothing Yves Guillemot or other executives have said in this Q&A meeting really inspires confidence that Ubisoft leadership will improve, and I really don't get a sense of empathy from Yves Guillemot when he apologizes for the way he said the ball is in your court. I don't get the sense that the wording was a sincere mistake. I get the sense that he meant exactly how that message came across. I shift the onus to you, the employees. As for me, I'm going to sit here in my ivory tower and just crack the whip until you guys make the company successful. It's just an incredibly demoralizing style of leadership, and hopefully one day down the line we'll see new management at Ubisoft. We'll see a new CEO take over who can steer the Ubisoft ship in the right direction. Or at least that's one man's take, and that's everything you need to know about what's going on surrounding Ubisoft amidst a tumultuous year, both financially and in terms of employees' morale at the studio. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Ubisoft, its current state, and what you think the future holds for the company. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.